Hello everyone. Tonight we journey back in time. Before we begin, take a deep breath. Allow your shoulders to drop and let the tension of the day gently melt away. Ensure you are lying comfortably in your bed. Your room is dark and the world outside is quiet. Tonight we leave the modern world completely behind. We travel across thousands of miles and thousands of years, settling into the ancient landscape of Old Kingdom Egypt during the 4th dynasty under the reign of the Pharaoh Khufu. You are not a spectator looking at a monument from a distance. You are there, living and breathing within the community that shaped the ancient world. Let your mind become still as the gentle rhythm of the Nile guides us into the past. You wake before sunrise. The air inside your small mud brick home is cool, a fleeting comfort before the intense heat of the Egyptian sun takes hold of the landscape. The house is silent, save for the soft, rhythmic breathing of your family members sleeping nearby on woven reed mats. You lie still for a moment, listening to the early morning sounds of the settlement outside. In the distance, a dog barks, its voice echoing faintly off the limestone cliffs that border the Nile Valley. Closer by, the gentle rustle of palm leaves in the morning breeze creates a soothing, repetitive whisper. The world is caught in that quiet, fragile transition between night and day. You slowly sit up, your muscles slightly stiff from the previous day's labor, but there is a steady, predictable comfort in this routine. Your home, located in the bustling builders' town of Hayt el Garab, is modest but sturdy. The walls, thickly plastered with Nile mud and straw, have insulated you from the chill of the desert. Night. You reach out in the dim light to find your linen tunic, the fabric softened by repeated washings in the river. Sliding it over your head, you tie a simple rope cord around your waist. Your feet find your leather sandals, well worn and shaped perfectly to the contours of your soles. Stepping out of the sleeping quarters, you move into the small courtyard of the house. The sky above is a deep, velvety indigo, fading into a pale, dusty rose along the eastern horizon. The morning star still burns brightly, a solitary beacon in the vast sky. In the corner of the courtyard, the cold embers of last night's cooking fire rest in a shallow clay hearth. You pour a small amount of water from a ceramic jar over your hands and face, the cool liquid instantly clearing the last remnants of sleep from your eyes. The water smells faintly of the river and the clay vessel that held it. You walk slowly toward the low doorway that leads to the narrow street outside. As you step across the threshold, you notice the smell of the village waking up. The scent of wood smoke begins to drift through the air as neighbors light their hearths. There is also the rich, earthy aroma of sourdough bread baking in heavy ceramic pots, a staple of the morning meal. The streets of the workers' town are narrow and winding, designed to catch the breeze and provide shade throughout the day. At this hour, they are peaceful. Figures wrapped in linen shawls move quietly through the twilight, their footsteps muffled by the packed dirt. You join the quiet flow of people moving toward the communal dining areas. These are the men and women who have come from all over Egypt, from the fertile delta in the north to the narrow valleys of the south. You are not slaves, as future legends might suggest. but respected laborers, conscripted through the corvée system or hired as skilled craftsmen, fulfilling a sacred duty to the pharaoh and the cosmos. There is a sense of shared purpose that binds everyone together. As you walk, you look to the west. There, silhouetted against the fading night sky, sits the Giza Plateau. Even in the darkness, the massive shape of the Great Pyramid dominates the horizon. It is an immense mountain of stone, still under construction, its stepped layers rising like a staircase to the heavens. At its base, the white Tura limestone casing stones that have already been laid catch the very first faint glints of dawn, glowing with a soft, ethereal light. The sight is both humbling and deeply familiar. It is the center of your world, the focal point of all human effort in this valley. You reach the large open-air kitchen complex where the morning rations are distributed. The scale of the operation is vast, designed to feed thousands of workers every single day. Long rows of pottery kilns and conical bread molds stand ready. You take your place in an orderly line, receiving a thick, round loaf of barley bread, heavily textured and hearty, along with a small bowl of lentils seasoned with garlic and coriander. To accompany the meal, a ceramic mug of thick, low-alcohol beer is poured from a large jar. This beer, rich in nutrients and yeast, is as much a food source as it is a drink, providing the hydration and energy needed for the hours of labor ahead. You sit on a smooth stone bench beneath a reed canopy, eating slowly, savoring the simple, nourishing flavors. Around you, the murmur of low conversation fills the air. Workers speak in various regional dialects of the Egyptian language, discussing the day's tasks, the quality of the stone arriving from the quarries, or news from their home villages. No one raises their voice. The atmosphere is one of calm preparation. As you finish your meal, the first bright sliver of the sun breaks over the eastern horizon, flooding the Nile Valley with golden light. The shadows stretch long and thin across the sand. The day has officially begun, and it is time to make the journey up to the plateau where the great stones await. You leave the dining area, stepping out into the full light of early morning. The sun has risen completely above the horizon, casting a warm, golden glow across the valley. The sky is a vast expanse of clear, brilliant blue, devoid of a single cloud. You begin the walk upward, leaving the low-lying town of Height El Garab and following the broad dirt ramp that leads toward the elevated limestone plateau of Giza. Hundreds of other workers walk alongside you, their footsteps creating a steady, rhythmic rustle against the gravel. The air is still crisp, but you can feel the faint, growing heat of the sun on your back. As you ascend, the view behind you opens up. To the east, the green ribbon of the Nile floodplain spreads out as far as the eye can see, crisscrossed by irrigation canals and dotted with small villages nestled among groves of date palms. The river itself shines like a ribbon of polished silver in the morning light. On its waters, heavy wooden cargo boats with broad, square sails glide toward the harbor at the foot of the plateau, loaded with supplies, timber, and massive blocks of stone from distant quarries. As you reach the top of the plateau, the true scale of the construction site comes into focus. The Great Pyramid towers above you, its massive base covering acres of land. Surrounding it is a vast, organized landscape of industry. To one side lie the barracks for the permanent workforce, neat rows of long mud brick buildings. To another, storage magazines filled with grain, oil, and dried fish. Broad wooden causeways and stone ramps crisscross the terrain, connecting the harbor, the quarries, and the rising monument itself. The soundscape here is unique and constant. There is the steady metallic clink of copper chisels striking limestone, sounding almost like musical notes in the open air. There is the thud of heavy wooden mauls pounding wooden wedges into rock fissures, and the deep rhythmic chants of work gangs synchronizing their strength as they haul stone. The air smells of freshly cut limestone, a dusty, dry mineral scent, mixed with the faint smoke of blacksmith fires, where copper tools are constantly being reshaped and sharpened. You report to your assigned overseer, a man named Ptahhotep, who stands near the eastern face of the pyramid holding a rolled papyrus scroll. He greets you with a brief, warm nod of recognition. In Old Kingdom Egypt, work crews are organized into precise hierarchical groups. The largest unit is a file, a team of roughly 1,000 men, often named after virtues or royal attributes, such as Friends of Khufu. Each file is divided into smaller units called za, consisting of about 20 men who live, eat, and work together. Your team is your family on this mountain of stone. You know every man's strength, rhythm, and character. Ptahhotep reviews the task for the morning. Today, your team will be working on the lower tiers, moving and placing large core blocks of local limestone that form the internal structure of the pyramid. These blocks, harvested from the nearby quarries on the plateau itself, are immense, each weighing around 2 to 3 tons. They are rough cut compared to the smooth Tura casing stones, but they must still be fitted with care to ensure the stability of the entire structure. You walk over to where your team's assigned block rests on a heavy wooden sledge. The sledge is crafted from thick beams of imported Lebanese cedar, sturdy enough to bear immense weight without snapping. 4 long ropes of woven papyrus fiber, thick as a man's wrist, are attached to the front of the sledge. You take your position along the second rope, wrapping the end once around your hands to secure your grip. Your boots press firmly into the packed dirt and sand. Beside the sledge stands the water bearer, holding a large clay jar equipped with a simple pour spout. His job is critical. The ground in front of the sledge is covered in a layer of fine, wet Nile silt and clay. Just before the pull begins, he walks ahead, pouring a steady stream of water onto the mud. This simple act reduces friction dramatically, allowing the wooden runners of the sledge to glide smoothly over the lubricated ground rather than digging into the soft sand. A senior worker, positioned at the head of the team, holds 2 hardwood clappers. He begins to strike them together in a slow, steady cadence. Tap, tap, tap. On the third strike, he calls out a short phrase in a rhythmic, chanting voice, invoking the protection of the gods and the health of the king. In unison, all 20 men lean forward, pressing their feet into the earth and straining their legs, backs, and shoulders against the ropes. For a second, the heavy sledge resists, holding firmly to the ground. You feel the tension pass through the thick papyrus rope, pulling taut against your hands. Then, with a low, satisfying sound, the friction gives way. The sledge begins to slide forward over the slick, wetted silt. The movement is slow and deliberate. Step by step, the team advances, maintaining the steady rhythm set by the clappers. As you walk, your legs move in time with the men beside you. The effort is significant, but it is not chaotic. It is a controlled, collective expenditure of energy. The stone glides smoothly along the causeway toward the base of the pyramid, moving closer to its final resting place. Around you, dozens of other teams are engaged in the same precise process. Sledges move in long lines, some carrying core blocks, others transporting fine white casing stones that have been brought across the river. The organization is seamless. Overseers step between the lines, checking alignment with wooden measuring rods and plumb bobs, ensuring that every movement is efficient and every block arrives exactly where it is needed. You continue to pull, feeling the rhythmic sway of the rope, the warmth of the morning air, and the steady, reassuring presence of your team working as one. The base of the great monument draws nearer with every step. The sledge slides smoothly to a halt near the lower courses of the eastern face, precisely where the overseer's chalk mark indicates the block must rest. You release your grip on the thick papyrus rope, shaking out your hands and rolling your shoulders to ease the tight muscles across your upper back. The air around the rising monument is thick with fine white dust, which catches the bright mid-morning sunlight and makes the atmosphere appear hazy and dreamlike. You pause for a brief moment of rest, wiping the sweat from your forehead with the back of your forearm. Around you, the construction site hums with activity. Directly above, workers are busy preparing the mortar bed for the block you have just delivered. They mix a pale, sticky paste of crushed limestone, gypsum, and water in low wooden troughs, spreading it evenly across the top of the course below. Every joint must be paper-thin and perfectly sealed, a testament to the extraordinary precision demanded by the royal architects. Your team shifts from hauling to placement. You step up onto the stepped platform of the pyramid, using a network of low timber ramps and scaffolding secured with thick ropes. The footing is secure, though the height increases with every passing week, offering a wider view of the surrounding plateau. Down below, the harbor is a bustling hive of activity, where flat-bottomed wooden boats unload more materials, while workers carry supplies in woven baskets, balanced on their heads or slung across their shoulders on wooden yokes. With the mortar prepared, you and 3 other men slide heavy wooden levers, dense bars of acacia wood, underneath the front corners of the stone block. The overseer signals with a sweep of his hand, and you lean your weight onto the levers, using your legs and core to lift the multi-ton mass by mere centimeters. Another team member quickly slips thin wooden shims and rollers beneath the raised edge. By shifting the levers and adjusting the rollers, you inch the massive limestone block forward with astonishing control, aligning it precisely with the chalk guidelines and the blocks already laid beside it. When the stone is in its exact final position, you gently lever it down, removing the rollers so it settles securely into the fresh mortar. A master mason steps forward, kneeling beside the joint. He runs his calloused fingers along the seam, checking the fit, then taps the stone lightly with a small wooden mallet to ensure there are no hollow spots beneath. Satisfied, he nods to the overseer, who makes a neat check mark on his papyrus tally sheet. Another single block has found its permanent home in the Mountain of the King. As the morning sun climbs higher toward its zenith, the heat begins to radiate intensely from the pale stone all around you. The air becomes still and dry, carrying the scent of warm dust, cedar wood, and sweat. The rhythmic sound of copper chisels chipping away at irregular stone edges echoes from the upper tiers, where master stonecutters are dressing the core blocks to receive the final outer casing. Your foreman calls for a brief water break. You step back into the temporary shade cast by a large timber scaffolding structure. The water bearer approaches with a large, porous clay jar that naturally cools its contents through evaporation. He fills a small terracotta cup, and you drink deeply. The water is cool and slightly mineral, instantly reviving you. You take a few slow, unhurried breaths, leaning your back against a cool pillar of stone, and watch the endless, orderly dance of labor unfolding across the plateau. In the distance, beyond the work zones, you can see the Royal Valley Temple taking shape near the edge of the cultivation zone, connected to the pyramid by a long, covered stone causeway. Priests and architects occasionally walk along the causeway, discussing the sacred geometry and ritual orientation of the complex. Everything here is aligned with the stars and the eternal cycle of the sun, designed to ensure that Pharaoh Khufu achieves his divine rebirth in the afterlife, taking his place among the immortal gods. You feel a quiet, profound sense of belonging settle over you. This monumental task, which might seem overwhelming to an outsider, is broken down into simple, manageable rhythms. One step, one pull, one stone at a time. The work is hard, but it is steady, predictable, and shared with men you have come to trust completely. The brief rest period draws to a close. The foreman strikes his wooden clappers once more, the sharp sound cutting cleanly through the ambient noise of the plateau. You push away from the stone wall, step back to your position, and prepare for the next haul, ready to embrace the steady, unhurried flow of the midday hours. The midday sun reaches its highest point in the pale, cloudless sky, casting short, sharp shadows directly beneath the massive structure of the pyramid. The heat is now a tangible presence, heavy and still, pressing down across the Giza plateau. Yet the work does not stop. Instead, it shifts into a steady, practiced rhythm that has been refined over generations. The pace slows slightly to accommodate the warmth, but the movement of men and materials remains continuous, like a slow-moving river of human effort. You wipe the sweat from your brow with the back of your hand and feel the fine limestone dust clinging to your skin. The air is filled with a dry, mineral warmth, carrying the scent of baked earth, sun-warmed wood, and the faint, savory aroma drifting up from the base of the plateau. It is almost time for the midday meal and the rest period that traditionally accompanies the hottest hours of the day. Your team completes one final haul for the morning, guiding a heavy block of core limestone into place along the third tier of the eastern face. The overseer checks the alignment one last time, taps his wooden tally stick against his knee, and calls out the release. The tension drains from the papyrus ropes, and the men drop their grips, stretching their arms and rotating their shoulders to relieve the stiffness in their joints. A collective wave of relief moves through the work crew. From the temporary field kitchens near the base of the monument, messengers arrive carrying large woven baskets and heavy clay water jars. It is time for the midday break, a vital pause in the daily routine designed to restore energy and offer respite from the blazing sun. You walk down the timber ramp alongside your companions, your sandals crunching softly on the gravel path. The descent is easier than the climb, and a gentle breeze begins to stir from the north, carrying a hint of moisture from the distant Mediterranean across the delta. You head toward a broad, low-slung reed canopy constructed near the administrative sheds, designed to provide deep shade during the hottest part of the day. Beneath the canopy, cool shadows offer immediate relief from the glare. You sit down on a smooth limestone block, resting your back against a sturdy cedar post. The ground beneath the shelter has been swept clean, and the air here is noticeably cooler than out in the day. Open sunlight. The rations for the midday meal are distributed with orderly efficiency. Each worker receives another portion of thick, dark barley bread, dense and filling, accompanied by a generous helping of raw onions and cloves of garlic, valued not only for their flavor, but for their antiseptic and health-protecting properties. Alongside the bread and vegetables, there are dried fish, salted and preserved in large clay jars, providing essential protein and salt to replenish what has been lost through sweat. A fresh supply of low-alcohol beer is poured into personal ceramic cups from large, open-mouthed amphorae. The cool, yeasty brew is deeply refreshing, quenching your thirst and instantly restoring your strength. You eat slowly, unhurriedly, sharing quiet conversations with the men of your Za. There is no talk of grand politics or the immense historical weight of what is being built. Instead, the conversation centers on familiar, grounding topics. One man speaks of his young son back in the village who is just beginning to help in the family fields. Another talks about the upcoming local festival of Min, wondering if they will be granted leave to return home when the death. Seasonal floodwaters begin to rise. The mood is relaxed, warm, and companionable. After finishing the meal, most of the men stretch out on woven reed mats beneath the shade of the canopy to rest during the peak heat of the afternoon. You lie back, placing your hands behind your head, and look up at the sturdy timber rafters overhead. Outside, the harsh glare of the sun beats down on the landscape, but here in the quiet shade, the world slows to a peaceful crawl. The ambient noise of the plateau fades into a soft, distant hum, the occasional dull thud of a mallet, the low murmur of voices, and the gentle rustle of the canopy in the breeze. Your eyelids grow heavy, and you allow yourself to drift into a light, restorative slumber, cradled by the steady rhythm of the ancient valley. You wake slowly from your rest as the heavy, drowsy stillness of the early afternoon begins to lift. The air beneath the reed canopy remains cool, but the quality of the light outside has shifted, turning from a harsh, blinding white to a softer, warmer amber. The deep shadows cast by the limestone blocks and timber scaffolding are beginning to lengthen, stretching gracefully across the dusty ground of the plateau. Around you, the other men are also stirring, stretching their limbs and rubbing the sleep from their eyes. There is a quiet, unhurried ease in the way everyone prepares to return to work. The intense heat of the midday has broken, replaced by a gentle, refreshing breeze drifting in from the north, carrying the clean scent of the river and damp earth. You stand up, brush the fine dust from your linen tunic, and take a long, refreshing drink from the water jar before stepping out from beneath the shelter. The afternoon shift begins not with a sudden rush, but with the same calm, deliberate cadence that governs everything on the Giza Plateau. You walk back toward the rising mass of the pyramid, your sandals finding a familiar rhythm on the packed gravel paths. The atmosphere is different now. The frantic energy of the morning has settled into a steady, enduring momentum. The sun is lower in the western sky, bathing the entire landscape in a rich, golden light that highlights the texture of every stone and the contours of every ramp. Your crew regroups near the eastern face, taking up their positions along the thick papyrus ropes of the sledge. The foreman stands ready with his wooden clappers, and the water-bearer prepares his jar of silt to lubricate the path. The work is physically demanding, but your body has warmed into the motion, and every movement feels natural and practiced. With the rhythmic tap, tap, tap of the clappers, the team leans forward together, and the heavy block of stone glides smoothly over the damp ground. As you haul and place stones through the afternoon hours, you notice the changing view from the upper tiers. The shadow of the Great Pyramid now stretches far out across the desert plain to the east, reaching toward the green ribbon of the Nile cultivation. Beyond the river, the low hills of the eastern desert are glowing with a deep reddish hue as the sun begins its slow descent toward the tip horizon. During a brief pause between hauls, you look down toward the base of the plateau and see small groups of villagers and traders arriving near the administrative storehouses. The afternoon marketplace is beginning to form, a place where extra produce, woven goods, and personal items are exchanged. Although your primary needs, food, beer, clothing, and medical care, are provided directly by the royal administration as part of your service, the local market offers a chance to trade small private items, acquire personal trinkets, or purchase extra treats for family members living in the country. Workers' settlement. The steady rhythm of the work continues for another couple of hours. Blocks are hauled, mortar is spread, and courses are leveled with exacting precision. Every man knows his part in the grand design, moving in quiet harmony with his companions. The noise of the chisels and mallets begins to soften as the day winds down, echoing less sharply in the cooling evening air. The sun dips lower, touching the crest of the western desert cliffs and spreading a brilliant canopy of orange, pink, and violet across the vast Egyptian sky. The overseer checks his papyrus scroll one final time, looking over the completed work for the day with a nod of quiet satisfaction. He raises his hand and calls out the dismissal for the evening. A gentle murmur of relief and contentment ripples through the exhausted but proud work crew. The labor of the day is done, and the long, peaceful evening awaits. You step away from the limestone blocks of the pyramid, leaving the heavy ropes and wooden sledges resting quietly for the night. The transition from labor to rest is smooth, marked by the steady, unhurried movement of hundreds of workers making their way down the broad dirt ramps of the plateau. The air is warm and comfortable, carrying the pleasant, cooling breath of the evening breeze as it sweeps across the Nile Valley. As you descend toward the workers' town of Hayt el Ghurab, the landscape transforms beneath the fading twilight. The brilliant colors of the sunset, vibrant oranges, soft pinks, and deep purples, are slowly surrendering to the quiet indigo of early night. To the east, the first bright stars begin to pierce the darkening sky, shining with a crisp, steady brilliance that has guided travelers and astronomers along the Nile for countless generations. Walking side by side with the men of your Zah, the mood is calm and reflective. The heavy physical effort of the day has left your muscles pleasantly tired, a deep, satisfying fatigue that signals a day well spent. Conversations are low and casual, touching on small domestic matters, plans for the morrow, or shared memories of home villages far to the south. There is no rush. The evening stretches out before you like an open, quiet valley, promising warmth, food, and restful sleep. Reaching the settlement, you navigate the familiar, narrow mud brick streets. The scent of wood smoke hangs thickly in the air once again, mingling with the rich, comforting aromas of roasting meat, baking bread, and simmering lentil stews coming from the communal cooking areas and private courtyards. Lanterns and small oil lamps flicker to life in doorways, casting warm, golden pools of light across the packed dirt. Pathways. You return to your modest home, stepping across the low threshold into the small courtyard. The day's heat has largely dissipated from the mud brick walls, leaving the interior refreshingly cool. You pour fresh water from a large storage jar into a shallow stone basin, washing the fine white limestone dust from your hands, arms, and face. The water feels remarkably soothing against your skin, washing away the remnants of the workday. Shortly after, your companions gather in the courtyard for the evening meal. Unlike the hearty, practical rations provided during the working hours, the evening meal is often prepared with items brought from home or traded at the local market. A large clay pot sits in the center, filled with a warm, thick porridge of emmer wheat, flavored with garlic, onions, and a touch of cumin. Beside it rests a basket of freshly baked barley bread and a small wooden bowl containing sweet, dark dates. You sit together on low wooden stools and woven mats, sharing the food in quiet companionship. A shared jug of beer is passed around, each man drinking deeply and appreciatively. There is a deep sense of security and community here. You are surrounded by people who understand your life, share your burdens, and celebrate your shared accomplishments. Every person in this town, from the bakers and potters to the master masons and stone haulers, is part of a singular, monumental endeavor, bound together by mutual respect and a shared place in the cosmic order. After the meal is finished, the plates are set aside, and you lean back against the cool plaster wall of the courtyard. The night sky above is vast and unobstructed, glittering with countless stars. In the quiet stillness, someone softly hums a traditional folk melody from the delta, a gentle, repetitive tune that seems to mimic the slow, steady flow of the sacred river nearby. The village around you grows gradually quieter. Voices drop to soft whispers. Children are tucked into their sleeping mats, and the flickering oil lamps are blown out one by one. The day's labor is fully behind you, and the peaceful embrace of the Egyptian night settles gently over the land.
The night deepens around the bustling settlement of Het El Ghurab, wrapping the small mud brick homes and the distant, towering silhouette of the pyramid in a blanket of absolute stillness. The cool desert air settles comfortably over the landscape, contrasting gently with the warmth absorbed by the earth during the long day. Inside your home, the courtyard is quiet, illuminated only by the faint, silvery glow of the stars overhead and a dying ember in the corner hearth. You remain seated for a few quiet moments, enjoying the profound peace that follows a day of honest, purposeful labor. The physical tiredness in your limbs feels heavy, but it is a pleasant grounding sensation, a reminder of your body's strength and resilience. The breathing of your family members is soft and steady from the inner sleeping rooms, a reassuring sound that anchors you deeply to this place. Rising slowly, you step across the smooth dirt floor and prepare for sleep. You unroll your woven reed mat in the quietest corner of the courtyard, where the night breeze can brush lightly against your face. You place a small, curved wooden headrest beneath your neck, adjusting it until your head is supported at just the right angle, a traditional and surprisingly comfortable way to sleep in the warm Egyptian climate, keeping your face cool and clear of dust. Lying down, you look up one last time at the vast canopy of the night sky. The stars are brilliant and unmoving, forming the eternal constellations that guide the seasons, the floods of the Nile, and the eternal journey of the soul. You trace the familiar patterns with your eyes, feeling a deep sense of connection to the cosmos, to the land, and to the divine order maintained by the Pharaoh. Everything in your world has its proper place, just as every stone you hauled today has its precise, permanent home in the great monument rising toward the heavens. The worries and stresses of the daytime hours dissolve completely into the quiet darkness. The gentle whispering of the palm leaves in the distance, combined with the soft, rhythmic sounds of the sleeping village, creates a natural lullaby. Your eyelids grow heavy, your breathing slows to match the calm pulse of the night, and you drift effortlessly into a deep, restorative sleep, ready to meet the dawn when it returns once more. The darkness begins to soften, almost imperceptibly, long before the first true light of dawn touches the desert floor. The night air remains cool and crisp, carrying the quiet, still atmosphere that precedes the awakening of the Nile Valley. Inside your quiet courtyard, the woven reed mat provides a familiar, comforting surface beneath you. You stir gently, rising from sleep with a slow, unhurried grace, your body feeling fully rested and restored by the hours of deep, unbroken slumber. You sit up on your mat, rubbing the last traces of sleep from your eyes and stretching your arms upward too. Loosen your muscles. The household around you is still wrapped in peaceful slumber, their breathing soft and rhythmic in the quiet dawn. You reach for your linen tunic, slipping it over your head and tying the simple rope cord around your waist with familiar, practiced movements. Your leather sandals are nearby, resting neatly where you left them the night before. Stepping out into the open courtyard, you find the world outside suspended in a hush of deep indigo and violet. The morning star shines brightly overhead, a solitary, steady guide in the vast expanse of the sky. In the corner of the yard, the cool ashes of yesterday's hearth remind you of the comforting routine that anchors your days. You take a small ceramic jug of fresh water and pour a cool trickle over your hands and face, feeling the crisp liquid awaken your senses and clear your mind. You walk toward the low wooden doorway and step out into the narrow, winding street of Hayt El Ghurab. The village is just beginning to stir. Faint curls of pale wood smoke rise from the low mud-brick chimneys as early rising neighbors tend to their hearths. The comforting, familiar scent of baking barley bread drifts through the cool air, blending with the earthy aroma of sun-dried mud bricks and river silt. Walking quietly through the lane, you make your way toward the communal gathering areas where the morning rations are prepared. The atmosphere is serene and orderly, entirely free of haste or stress. Workers in simple linen garments move with quiet purpose, greeting one another with low, respectful nods and gentle morning wishes. There is a deep, unspoken bond shared by everyone here, a collective understanding of the grand, sacred task that awaits them up on the plateau. You join the orderly line for breakfast, receiving your daily share of hearty, textured barley bread, a small portion of onions, and a fresh ceramic mug of nourishing, low-alcohol beer. You find a quiet spot to sit on a smooth stone bench near the edge of the camp, eating slowly and mindfully. The simple flavors are grounding, providing all the nourishment and sustained energy needed for the morning's physical labor. As you finish your meal, the eastern horizon begins to transform. A delicate wash of pale gold and soft rose spills across the sky, chasing away the remnants of the night. The sharp, clean light of a new day touches the upper ridges of the distant eastern cliffs before sweeping down across the green, fertile expanse of the Nile floodplain. You look toward the west, where the majestic silhouette of the Great Pyramid waits patiently against the brightening sky. Even at this early hour, the massive monument commands absolute reverence. Its immense stone tiers catch the very first rays of sunlight, glowing with a warm, golden radiance that seems almost divine. The new day has fully arrived, bringing with it the promise of steady work, familiar routines, and the quiet peace of the ancient valley. You finish your morning meal, setting your empty ceramic cup neatly beside the stone bench. The cool air of dawn is already beginning to warm, gently brushed by a light, refreshing breeze drifting down from the north. You stand up, feeling the pleasant readiness in your muscles, and join the steady, quiet stream of workers making their way toward the broad dirt ramp that leads up to the Giza Plateau. The walk upward is a familiar and meditative ritual. Around you, hundreds of men move with the same unhurried cadence, their footsteps crunching softly against the gravel path. As you ascend, the view of the Nile Valley broadens behind you. The river glistens like polished silver in the morning light, framed by the vivid green fields and palm groves that line its banks. On the water, small wooden skiffs and cargo vessels glide silently, carrying supplies and fresh crews from neighboring districts. Reaching the top of the plateau, the immense scale of the royal construction site comes into view once again. The air here is already alive with the familiar, harmonious sounds of labor. The rhythmic clink of copper chisels on limestone, the dull thud of wooden mallets, and the low, resonant chanting of work gangs coordinating their strength. The scent of fresh stone dust and sun-warmed cedar fills the atmosphere. You report to Tahotep, your overseer, who stands near the southeastern corner of the pyramid with his papyrus tally scroll. He assigns your Za, your team of 20 men, to a new section of the core masonry on the second tier. Today, instead of hauling core blocks from the nearby quarry, your team is tasked with transporting high-grade limestone blocks that have just arrived by boat at the base harbor and been hauled up the grand ramp system. You walk over to the designated staging area, where a massive 2-ton block rests upon a sturdy sled of Lebanese cedar. The 4 thick papyrus ropes are laid out neatly before it. You take your position along the second rope, gripping the fibrous cord firmly and setting your feet into the packed dirt. The water-bearer steps forward with his clay jar, ready to wet the track with a thin layer of Nile silt. The senior worker raises his wooden clappers, striking them together in a slow, deliberate tempo. Tap, tap, tap. On the third strike, he calls out the rhythmic work chant. You lean forward together, throwing your weight against the ropes. For a brief second, the heavy sled resists, holding firm to the ground. Then, with a smooth, satisfying slide, the friction breaks and the stone moves forward. You step in time with the men beside you, feeling the steady, predictable pull of the rope. There is a deep comfort in this synchronized effort. Every step is measured, every breath is shared, and every movement brings the great monument closer to completion. The sun continues its steady climb into the clear blue sky, casting warm, golden light across the plateau, guiding you effortlessly through the morning hours. The morning hours pass smoothly, measured by the steady rhythm of the heavy sledges and the quiet efficiency of the work crews across the plateau. Course by course, the limestone blocks are hauled, lifted with wooden levers, and guided into place with meticulous precision. By the time the sun reaches its midpoint in the pale blue sky, your team has successfully delivered and placed 4 massive blocks, earning a nod of quiet approval from the overseer. As the heat of midday begins to settle over the Giza Plateau, the familiar call for the midday break echoes gently across the work zones. The intense warmth is softened by a steady northern breeze, bringing a touch of cool air from the Mediterranean across the delta. You step back from the stone wall, letting go of the heavy papyrus ropes, and roll your shoulders to relieve the mild tension in your back. You and the men of your Za walk down the timber ramp together, heading toward the broad reed canopy that serves as your communal dining shelter. The shade beneath the roof offers immediate relief from the bright glare of the sun. The ground has been swept clean, and the air here is cool and still. The midday rations are distributed with calm, orderly efficiency. You receive a thick, hearty round of dark barley bread, a handful of crisp, raw onions, and a portion of salted fish, rich in flavor and sustenance. A fresh clay amphora provides cool, nourishing beer, poured generously into individual ceramic cups. You sit on a low stone block, eating at a slow, unhurried pace, sharing quiet, easy conversation with your companions about everyday village life, the upcoming seasonal festivals, and the steady progress of the great monument. Following the meal, the afternoon rest period begins. Most of the men stretch out on woven reed mats beneath the shade, closing their eyes to escape the peak heat of the day. You lie back, resting your head upon a smooth wooden headrest, and listen to the faint, distant hum of the plateau, the soft rustle of the reed roof in the breeze, the occasional murmur of voices, and the quiet stillness of the valley. Your eyelids grow heavy, and you drift into a peaceful, restorative sleep, cradled by the timeless rhythm of the ancient world. You wake slowly from your midday rest as the deep stillness of the early afternoon begins to fade. The air beneath the reed canopy remains cool, but the quality of the light outside has shifted, turning from a harsh, blinding glare into a soft, golden amber. The long shadows cast by the limestone blocks and timber scaffolding are stretching gracefully across the dusty ground of the plateau, signaling the transition into the second half of the day. Around you, the men of your Za are stirring, stretching their limbs and rubbing the sleep from their eyes with quiet, unhurried ease. You stand up, brush the fine dust from your linen tunic, and take a long, refreshing drink from the water jar before stepping out from beneath the shelter. The afternoon breeze from the north continues to blow gently, carrying the clean, familiar scent of the river and damp earth across the landscape. You walk back toward the rising mass of the pyramid, your sandals finding a comfortable, familiar rhythm on the packed gravel paths. The atmosphere on the plateau is calm and steady. The frantic energy of the morning has settled into an enduring momentum, matching the slow, majestic movement of the sun as it begins its long descent toward the western desert cliffs. Your crew regroups near the eastern face, taking up their positions along the thick papyrus ropes of the sledge. The foreman stands ready with his wooden clappers, and the water-bearer prepares his jar of silt to lubricate the path. Your body is well rested and warmed into the motion, and every step feels natural and practiced. With the rhythmic tap, tap, tap of the clappers, the team leans forward together, and the heavy block of stone glides smoothly over the damp ground. As you haul and place stones through the afternoon hours, you notice the familiar, comforting view from the upper tiers. The shadow of the Great Pyramid stretches far out across the desert plain to the east, reaching toward the green ribbon of the Nile cultivation, where farmers are tending to their late-day chores. Beyond the river, the low hills of the eastern desert glow with a deep reddish hue as the afternoon wanes. The steady rhythm of the work continues for another couple of hours. Blocks are hauled, mortar is spread, and courses are leveled with exacting precision. Every man knows his part in the grand design, moving in quiet harmony with his companions. The noise of the chisels and mallets begins to soften as the day winds down, echoing less sharply in the cooling evening air. The sun dips lower, touching the crest of the western desert cliffs and spreading a brilliant canopy of orange, pink, and violet across the vast Egyptian sky. The overseer checks his papyrus scroll one final time, looking over the completed work for the day with a nod of quiet satisfaction. He raises his hand and calls out the dismissal for the evening. A gentle murmur of relief and contentment ripples through the exhausted but proud work crew. You step away from the limestone blocks of the pyramid, and the long, leaving the heavy ropes and wooden sledges resting quietly for the night. The transition from labor to rest is smooth, marked by the steady, unhurried movement of hundreds of workers making their way down the broad dirt ramps of the plateau. The air is warm and comfortable, carrying the pleasant, cooling breath of the evening breeze as it sweeps across the Nile Valley. As you descend toward the workers' town of Hit El Ghurab, the landscape transforms beneath the fading twilight. The brilliant colors of the sunset, vibrant oranges, soft pinks, and deep purples, are slowly surrendering to the quiet indigo of early night. To the east, the first bright stars begin to pierce the darkening sky, shining with a crisp, steady brilliance that has guided travelers and astronomers along the Nile for countless generations. Walking side by side with the men of your Zah, the mood is calm and reflective. The heavy physical effort of the day has left your muscles pleasantly tired, a deep, satisfying fatigue that signals a day well spent. Conversations are low and casual, touching on small domestic matters, plans for the morrow, or shared memories of home villages far to the south. There is no rush. The evening stretches out before you like an open, quiet valley, promising warmth, food, and restful sleep. Reaching the settlement, you navigate the familiar, narrow, mud-brick streets. The scent of wood smoke hangs thickly in the air once again, mingling with the rich, comforting aromas of roasting meat, baking bread, and simmering lentil stews coming from the communal cooking areas and private courtyards. Lanterns and small oil lamps flicker to life in doorways, casting warm, golden pools of light across the packed dirt. Pathways. You return to your modest home, stepping across the low threshold into the small courtyard. The day's heat has largely dissipated from the mud brick walls, leaving the interior refreshingly cool. You pour fresh water from a large storage jar into a shallow stone basin, washing the fine white limestone dust from your hands, arms, and face. The water feels remarkably soothing against your skin, washing away the remnants of the workday. Shortly after, your companions gather in the courtyard for the evening meal. Unlike the hearty, practical rations provided during the working hours, the evening meal is often prepared with items brought from home or traded at the local market. A large clay pot sits in the center, filled with a warm, thick porridge of emmer wheat, flavored with garlic, onions, and a touch of cumin. Beside it rests a basket of freshly baked barley bread and a small wooden bowl containing sweet, dark dates. You sit together on low wooden stools and woven mats, sharing the food in quiet companionship. A shared jug of beer is passed around, each man drinking deeply and appreciatively. There is a deep sense of security and community here. You are surrounded by people who understand your life, share your burdens, and celebrate your shared accomplishments. Every person in this town, from the bakers and potters to the master masons and stone haulers, is part of a singular, monumental endeavor, bound together by mutual respect and a shared place in the cosmic order. After the meal is finished, the plates are set aside, and you lean back against the cool plaster wall of the courtyard. The night sky above is vast and unobstructed, glittering with countless stars. In the quiet stillness, someone softly hums a traditional folk melody. From the delta, a gentle, repetitive tune that seems to mimic the slow, steady flow of the sacred river nearby. The village around you grows gradually quieter. Voices drop to soft whispers. Children are tucked into their sleeping mats, and the flickering oil lamps are blown out one by one. The day's labor is fully behind you, and the peaceful embrace of the Egyptian night settles gently over the land. The night deepens around the quiet village of Hayt el Ghurab, enveloping the mud brick homes and the vast, shadowy expanse of the plateau in a profound, unbroken stillness. The desert air has grown cool and crisp, providing a refreshing contrast to the warmth absorbed by the earth during the long day. Inside your courtyard, the atmosphere is hushed and serene, broken only by the occasional faint rustle of palm fronds in the gentle night breeze. You sit quietly on your woven mat for a few moments, letting the gentle, peaceful rhythm of the night wash over you. The heavy, honest fatigue in your muscles is a comforting presence, a quiet reminder of the day's steady labor and your body's enduring strength. The soft, rhythmic breathing of your family members from the inner rooms creates a cocoon of security and warmth, grounding you deeply in this ancient, familiar sanctuary. Slowly, you prepare for sleep, lying back upon the woven reed mat and adjusting the smooth wooden headrest beneath your neck. Your head is supported at just the right angle, keeping you cool and comfortable in the gentle draft of the night air. You look up one last time at the magnificent canopy of the night sky. The stars burn with a steady, brilliant light, forming the eternal constellations that have watched over the valley of the Nile for countless generations. You trace the familiar patterns of the stars with your eyes, feeling a profound sense of peace and belonging. Every part of your life, the quiet mornings, the rhythmic pull of the heavy ropes, the shared meals with your companions, and the starlit nights, is part of a larger, harmonious order. The Great Pyramid rests silently in the darkness just a short distance away, its towering tiers rising steadily toward the night heavens, securing the eternal journey of the king and the stability of the land. The gentle sounds of the sleeping village fade into a soft, distant hum. Your eyelids grow heavy, your breathing slows to match the calm pulse of the night, and you drift effortlessly into a deep, restorative sleep, cradled by the timeless tranquility of the ancient world. The hours of darkness slip away in a profound, unbroken silence, carrying the valley of the Nile gently toward the edge of a new dawn. The air inside your courtyard grows cooler, holding the crisp, refreshing stillness of the pre-dawn hours. The stars overhead begin their slow, majestic descent toward the western horizon, their brilliant points of light softening against the deep, velvety indigo of the fading night. You lie quietly on your woven reed mat, still wrapped in the warm, restorative embrace of sleep. Your breathing is slow, even, and deeply relaxed. The heavy physical efforts of the past days have melted away, replaced by a profound sense of physical ease and mental tranquility. There are no sudden noises, no rushing thoughts, only the quiet, rhythmic pulse of the night and the gentle whispering of the desert wind brushing against the mud brick walls of your home. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the first faint hints of a new day begin to touch the edges of the world. A delicate, pale rose light appears along the eastern horizon, painting the sky in soft, muted tones that quietly chase away the shadows of the night. The morning star shines with a final, gentle brilliance before dissolving into the brightening expanse of the azure sky. In the distance, the first soft sounds of the awakening village begin to drift across the narrow lanes. The gentle rustle of a palm frond, the distant, muffled bark of a dog, and the faint, comforting scent of wood smoke beginning to rise from a neighbor's hearth. It is the familiar, comforting prelude to another day of purposeful life along the great river, anchored in traditions that have endured for generations. You rest peacefully within this quiet transition, feeling completely safe, grounded, and at peace. The weight of the world is entirely absent, leaving only the quiet beauty of the morning light and the gentle, eternal rhythm of the ancient land. The soft, rosy light of dawn slowly deepens into a warm, golden hue, filling the courtyard with a gentle, reassuring radiance. The cool morning breeze stirs the air once more, carrying the clean, familiar scents of river water, damp earth, and baking bread from the awakening village outside. The long night has passed peacefully, leaving behind a profound sense of stillness and quiet restoration. You open your eyes slowly, looking up into the clear, pale blue sky, where the last stars have quietly faded away. Your body feels light, rested, and entirely at ease, completely untroubled by the passing of time. The steady, predictable rhythm of life along the Nile continues its eternal flow, offering comfort in its simplicity and grace. You lie still for a few lingering moments, listening to the soft, rhythmic sounds of your family beginning to stir in the inner rooms and the gentle murmur of the village outside. There is no rush, no urgency, and no burden to carry. The day stretches ahead like an open, quiet valley, filled with familiar routines, shared companionship, and the steady, enduring beauty of the ancient world. You take a deep, slow breath, letting the cool morning air fill your lungs. Allow your limbs to grow heavier against the mat, your mind to remain entirely calm, and your thoughts to drift away into a deep, peaceful stillness. The night is over, the new day is quiet and secure, and you are completely at rest.